In this video, I will talk about Canadian culture, how it differs and is similar to the US. Canadian culture is influenced by British, French, and American culture. One thing I didn't know about Canada is that they use totem poles in the culture, and I'll be working with the iceberg. Surface culture. One famous food is maple syrup. Maple syrup comes from the maple leaf found in all parts of Canada. It's also the leaf represented on the Canadian flag. Another famous dish is a split pea soup. They often wear parkas and other clothes to keep them warm because of the cold climate. Canadian music is typically the same as American music. Metal, classical, rock, blues, hip-hop, jazz, country, traditional, and folk are some genres Canadians like. Scotland has existed since Canada's early years. One famous painting includes the Jack Pine from 1916. Famous dramas include Rookie Blue and Heartland. Traditional crafts used in Canada are clay, wood, glass, and leather. Famous dances include folk dance, ballet, and square dance. Canadian literature is literature of a multicultural country written in languages including Canadian English, Canadian French, Indigenous languages, and many others such as Canadian Gaelic. Famous books include Fifth Business and The Stone Age. The languages of Canada are French and English. Some celebrations include New Year's Day, Good Friday, Easter Monday, Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Remembrance Day, Christmas, and Boxing Day. Victoria Day celebrates the Queen of Victoria's birthday. Famous games include ice hockey, basketball, crokinole, and balderdash. Deep culture, part 1. They generally greet each other by shaking hands. Hugs are usually used when you become closer. The minimum for tipping in Canada is 15% of the price of the bill. French and English conversations differ slightly. Canadians are relatively indirect communicators. They try to avoid creating conflict by taking careful measures to remain polite throughout discussion. They try to avoid too much physical contact. In Canada, punctuality means not arriving more than 5 to 10 minutes early. Personal space in Canada means arm length. The Code of Conduct sets out principles that apply banks to guide them when they deliver banking products and services to Canada's seniors. During COVID, while a face mask covers one smile, one expert says Canadians are still able to express themselves and show emotion to one another through their body language and facial expressions despite having their mouth covered. One part of nonverbal communication involves eye contact, but intermediately. Canadians generally don't touch very much while conversing. Maintaining a certain amount of personal space is important. French Canadians are generally more expressive than other Canadians. That is body language. A way of handling emotions is working it out. Bragging about being modest is not modest. The Canadian canoe is one of the greatest achievements of mankind, wrote paddling guru Bo Mason. There is nothing so aesthetically pleasing and yet so functional and versatile. Now, before we move on to part 2, I'm going to talk about what I said in the beginning, explain how Canadian culture compares and contrasts to American culture, since Canadian culture is partially based on American. Canadians generally apologize a lot more than Americans. Canadian healthcare is free. We got a lot of the same clothing styles. That's all for this little segment. Now on to part 2 of the deep culture. Deep culture, part 2. Canadian courtship was influenced by British culture, where women would invite men over or call them when they were at home. 56% of people in Canada have pets. They have prime ministers instead of presidents. The current is just introduced since 2015. Canada is a member of the British Commonwealth, and so Queen Elizabeth II rules over the government. Trudeau just rules the legislature. Their tempo of work is a lot like the U.S. Parents have the right to raise and discipline their children based on their values and beliefs. These methods should not harm the child and must conform to the Canadian law. They once had a theory of brain disease and thought it was genetic. The social interaction rate is 83%. They have lots of friendships with other countries. They're all forward-looking, flexible, goal-oriented, helpful, and friendly. A poll of 1,500 Canadians found 8 in 10 seniors aged 75 and older are seen as less important than, are more ignored than younger generations, according to a new global study on cleanliness and influenza that reveals that only 54% of the country washes their hands at least 5 times a day. Deep Culture, Part 3, the final part. Teenagers in Canada tend to be involved with their families, and the vast majority of teens live with both parents. Canadian teens are expected to contribute to household chores and duties, from washing dishes to taking out the garbage to shoveling snow in winter or mowing lawn the rest of the year. Their decision making is a lot like the rest of the world. The insanity defense consists of 2 factors: mental illness and the resultant incapacity. In most insanity tests, it is the incapacity that is the critical excusing condition, not the mental illness. Despite having enacted the modern world's first competition law, the competition is not at the forefront of Canada's economic discussion, and traditionally we have not had a strong culture of competition in this country. Pain tolerance was measured by the amount of time which passed between the first expression of pain and the withdrawal of the stimulus. Canada is governed with a socialist mindset that discourages personal responsibility and self-reliance in favor of government independence. Our past is what shapes our future, and it's only by understanding our past that we can really understand who we are and prepare for a better future. Under Canadian law, material is deemed obscene if a dominant characteristic of it is the undue exploitation of sex, or sex combined with crime, horror, cruelty, and violence. A definition so vague that makes it miss the relative clarity of America's Miller Standard. The Cultural Atlas aims to inform and educate the public in cross-cultural attitudes, practices, norms, behaviors, communication, and business skills. In English Canada, there is a modest negative relationship between support for gender equality and the importance of children. The Canadian Human Rights Act was amended in 1996 to explicitly prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation, including the unequal treatment of gay men, lesbians, and bisexuals. Organizations such as Eagle Canada, Equality for Gays and Lesbians Everywhere, Activate for LGBT Rights, establish gay pride organizations in Canadian communities, and promote gay straight alliance support in groups in schools. Advocacy agents frequently use the acronym LGBTQ, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer or questioning. Okay, that's it for this video.